UFC Fight Night, Bautista versus Oliveira. This fight night is taking place February 7th, 2026, and I'm gonna give you guys my predictions. We're gonna start off on the main card. There's a lot of really good fights on the prelims, a lot of sleepers, but we're just gonna go through the main card. Starting off with Dustin Jacoby, who is a minus 185 favorite, versus Julius Walker, who's a plus 154. Jacoby is 21-9-1 in his professional career. He's on a 2-fight winning streak in the UFC with that Petrino KO and that Bruno Lopez KO. I was very, very impressed, like many others were, with that Petrino KO. Petrino's very good. He's moved up to heavyweight since. But Jacoby knocking him out is very impressive. He's, like I said, he's finished his last 2 opponents. He is 37 years old, but in these higher weight classes, you know, you can be 37, you can be 38, you can be 40, and you can still be champion. And so now we go to Walker. He's 7-1. He's 1-1 in the UFC. He came in with the debut against Alonzo Menafield. He lost that by decision. And then he fought Sequeira and he won by decision. But the thing is here, with that Sequeira fight, everybody's knocking Sequeira out. Everybody's finishing Sequeira inside 1 round. I believe he's 0-4 in the UFC. Well, he might have 1 win, but he's 0-4 in his last 4 in the UFC. He's been knocked out 3 times. I believe that Jacoby is the clear pick here. I think he's got more skill. He's more experienced. He's nearly got 4 times the professional experience as Walker. And so I think Jacoby is the clear pick here in this opening fight. And now we're gonna go to Gene Matsumoto, who's a plus 235 underdog, versus Farid Basharat, who's a minus 290. Farid is one of the Basharat brothers who are in the UFC. They were both doing very, very good until his brother ran into Ricky Simone last year at UFC Seattle in February, and he was brutally knocked out by Ricky Simone on US soil. But this Basharat brothers, he's actually been very, very good. He's 5-0 in the UFC with 4 decisions. He's an absolute decision merchant, and he's fighting Gene Matsumoto, who is 3-1 in the UFC. That 1 loss being against Rob Font, who is a bit of a prospect killer, if you will. And so I think the better pick here. Well, first of all, I think this fight will be pretty competitive. I don't think this fight is as one-sided as the betting lines would suggest. I don't think Matsumoto should be a plus 235 dog. I think this fight is going to be very, very competitive. But I am leaning towards Basharat. I do think Basharat would be a better pick. I think he's shown more in his game over his 5-0 UFC record. I think Matsumoto has shown more weakness than Basharat has over his UFC career. And so at this point in time, I do think that the better pick is Basharat. Now, Matsumoto is very good. He's got the vicious factor that I don't think Basharat has. I don't think Basharat has the finishing factor that Matsumoto does. And so I'm gonna go with Basharat here. I think he's the more logical pick, but this is a very, very close fight, a lot closer than the odds would suggest. So now we're going to Mikhail Oleksiejczuk, who's a minus 425, versus Marc-Andre Barriault, who's a plus 330. Now, I have a feeling that these odds are much more appropriate. Oleksiejczuk, he's, both of these guys are very middle of the pack fighters in the UFC. They both had very up and down records. Oleksiejczuk is 9-7-1 in the UFC, but he's on a 2-fight winning streak, and he's been training with the Fighting Nerds. He's finished his last 2 opponents inside the first round. On the other hand, we have Barriault, who's 6-9-1 in the UFC. He's 1-4 in his last 5, and he's fallen on hard times. Like I said earlier, both of these guys have had very up and down UFC careers. Both are very middle of the pack middleweights. Although they're both definitely not on their way to contendership or to a title shot. But I think the clear pick here is Oleksiejczuk. I believe, although he isn't the best, he has better momentum, and he's the younger fighter. I believe he's only 30 years old, and he's been in the UFC since 2017, which is very crazy. It's a very, very long time in the UFC, almost 10 years. If he's 30, that puts him in the UFC since he was like 22, 23. Here, I think the better pick is Mikhail. He's the younger fighter. He's got the more experience inside the UFC. He's less chinny than Barriault is. I'm gonna pick Oleksiejczuk here in this fight. He's on a 2-fight winning streak. I think everything is on his side here in this fight. The next fight we will go to is Jailton Almeida, who's a minus 148 favorite, and he's going up against Rizvan Kuniev, who is a plus 124. Jailton Almeida, he's 8-2 in the UFC, and he lost his last fight to Alexander Volkov. On the other hand, Rizvan Kuniev, he's 0-1 in the UFC. He lost his debut to Curtis Blades, who also landed Jailton his first UFC loss. I personally thought that Rizvan won the Curtis Blades fight. I think he looked very good in that fight. He defended most of the takedowns, and he had a lot of success on the feet. And I personally think he beat Curtis Blades, which is crazy to do in your UFC debut. And so that being said, I'm gonna have to go with the underdog here. I think Jailton's game at the start of his UFC career, it was very impressive. He was destroying people. But since then, I think his game has become pretty stale and quite predictable. And I was very impressed with Kuniev in the Blades fight. You know, he was able to defend almost all the takedowns, and he looked very, very impressive on the feet. And I can see Rizvan doing much of the same here against a much more one-dimensional fighter than Curtis Blades in Jailton Almeida. And so I'm going with the dog here, Rizvan Kuniev, and he might be my lock on this card. He's nasty on the feet. He's good in the grappling department, and I think he's going to take care of Jailton Almeida. The next fight we go to is the co-main event. Amir Albazi, who is a plus 280 underdog, and he's fighting Kyoji Horiguchi, who is a minus 355 favorite. And Kyoji Horiguchi, he looked insane in his last fight against Tagir Ulanbekov. He beat the brakes off of that dude. Horiguchi's last fight was a long-awaited return to the octagon after choosing not to renew his contract after his first stint in the UFC, which he went 7-1 in the UFC from 2013 to 2016. From 2017 to 2024, after he left the UFC, this is crazy. He went 16-3-1, including wins over top UFC contenders Manel Kape, Kai Asakura, and at one time Sergio Pettis. Very, very good wins from Kyoji. Kyoji returned to the UFC in November of 2025, and he looked great against Ulanbekov. Now, Amir Albazi, who is 5-1 in the UFC, he lost his last fight by decision against Moreno in a fight that he looked very wooden and robotic in. But once I tell you about his injuries, that'll sort of make sense. Before his loss to Moreno, Amir won a controversial decision against Kai Kara-France, which the majority of MMA fans, MMA media believe that Kai Kara-France won. But he was gifted that decision. But Amir's recent UFC career has been plagued with injuries, having to pull out of 2 fights in the past 2 years, also having a 1.5-year layoff from his Kai Kara-France fight to his Moreno fight. Albazi has undergone both heart and neck surgeries in the past 3 years. All this considered, I'm definitely going to have to go with the favorite here in Horiguchi. I think this is going to be a beating. I think he's going to put a nasty beating on Albazi. You look and see what Moreno did to Albazi. I believe that Horiguchi is much more dynamic, and I think he's quicker than Moreno, and I think it's going to be a worse beating than Moreno put on him. My pick here is definitely Horiguchi. His experience, his performances have been much more impressive. He's fought better, much better competition. He's got a much better record. In his last performance, it truly shocked me. I think he's got the momentum going into this fight, and he trains at one of the best gyms in the world in American Top Team down in Florida. Horiguchi is the clear pick here. And now we move on to the main event. We got Mario Bautista versus Vinicius Oliveira. And it's interesting, Mario Bautista is a minus 200 favorite, whereas Vinicius Oliveira is a plus 150 underdog. I was not expecting Oliveira to be the underdog like that. You got Mario Bautista. He is 10-3 in the UFC. He lost a few, but he went on a crazy tear, going 8-0 for running into Umar Nurmagomedov. And he's 8-1 in his last 9, and he's coming up against Vinicius Oliveira, who is 4-0 in the UFC. He came in March of 2024. He hit that insane flying knee on Bernardo Sopai, and then he went and fought Ricky Simon. He took him to a decision. He took Said Nurmagomedov to a decision. He took Kyler Phillips to a decision. I believe both of these guys are decision machines, other than, you know, the flying knee from Vinicius and a few finishes from Bautista. But here in this fight, between these two, Vinicius Oliveira and Mario Bautista, I'm gonna have to go go with the underdog in Vinicius Oliveira. I think just as, you know, we've seen before, I think he's more vicious than a Mario Bautista. You know, Mario Bautista, his biggest weapon in this fight is probably going to be his cardio. Vinicius Oliveira, we have seen him gas. We saw him gas in the Said Nurmagomedov fight. He gassed in the 3rd round, which is very interesting considering this is a 5-round fight. But against Mario Bautista's got some of the best cardio in that division. He's one of the most well-rounded guys in that division. But I believe that Vinicius Oliveira, he's gonna go in there. He's got crazy power, and I think he's gonna shock Bautista early and often. And I think that's gonna keep Mario Bautista at bay. And this is gonna be at least an over 3.5. I believe that this is gonna go to a decision, and if not, it's gonna end in the later rounds. Maybe an early finish. I know Bautista's been finished. He got finished by Sandhagen and Trevin Jones. And maybe Vinicius Oliveira can land something on him that finishes him. But I think other than that, I think he's gonna land early and often. He's gonna land power, and it's going to keep Mario Bautista at bay. And I think Vinicius Oliveira can win a decision here. You know, plus money on Oliveira. He's the underdog, which I was not expecting. My pick here is gonna be Vinicius Oliveira. He's a little bit younger than Mario Bautista. He's 30 years old and Mario's 32. And so I guess you could say the youth is on Vinicius Oliveira's side. But Vinicius Oliveira has more fights. He's got more experience. I believe that he has the power edge, and I think this is gonna be at least over 3.5 to a decision for Vinicius Oliveira. Those are my predictions for the main card of Fight Night. Mario Bautista versus Vinicius Oliveira, taking place February 7th, 2026 on Paramount. Please like and subscribe. If you agree, comment. If you disagree, comment.